The sterile walls of the courtroom echoed with the sound of a gavel striking wood, an unyielding reminder of the power dynamics at play. Clara sat on the hard wooden bench, her fingers nervously twisting the frayed hem of her sweater. The lawyer's voice droned on, each slick syllable dripping with authority, as he unleashed a barrage of accusations, painting her as a negligent mother, a victim of her own choices. The air thickened with contempt, the judge's cold gaze cutting through her like a blade. In stark contrast, Sam stood at the back of the courtroom, clad in a faded janitor's uniform, his eyes scanning the room, absorbing the humiliation Clara endured. While others wore tailored suits, he remained a quiet sentinel, his face framed by the harsh fluorescent lights above. He wasn't there for the spectacle, he was there for her, a promise made in whispered doubt over coffee after a long day. As the lawyer's voice crescendoed, Sam clenched his jaw, sharp memories of discipline and camaraderie flickering behind his eyes. Every insult hurled at Clara was another reminder of battles fought, yet here he was, a silent guardian, waiting for the right moment to step into the fray. Clara's life had always been a careful balance of sacrifice and resilience. Each morning, she rose before dawn, her hands trembling slightly as she brewed coffee, the scent a muted comfort against the backdrop of her chaotic world. The small kitchen, with its chipped linoleum and worn-out cabinets, bore witness to countless nights spent quietly weeping over bills, wondering how she would stretch her paycheck enough to cover rent and groceries. At times, the weight of it all felt like a heavy stone lodged in her chest, but she had learned to breathe through the discomfort, to find strength there. Her world was simple, a one-bedroom apartment where the laughter of her son, Ethan, echoed against the walls, a balm to her weary spirit. Being a mother was the hardest thing she had ever done, yet it filled her with purpose. Every school project, every scraped knee, and every bedtime story drew from the well of her undying love and commitment. She wore the title of single mom like armor, but behind that facade lay a torrent of unspoken fears. After her husband had left, she had faced judgment and whispers from the community, the piercing glances from other parents at the playground, but she stood tall, shoulders squared against the storm. Clara had learned to be her own anchor, navigating the rough seas with no compass, simply trusting her instincts and her love for Ethan to guide her. Yet, hidden beneath the surface of her mundane existence was a well of strength that only emerged when faced with adversity. That strength revealed itself in the way she battled through exhaustion, waking up late at times but always managing to make the first day of school special for Ethan, her smile masking her own exhaustion as she meticulously outlined plans for their shared future. Clara often scribbled her dreams in the margins of her grocery lists, ideas of starting her own small business, crafting a life where Ethan wouldn't have to endure the struggles she'd faced. Though life had dealt her a rough hand, she played it with unwavering courage, taking each day as it came, even when the nights were long and filled with doubt. Meanwhile, Sam stood in the dim light of the courtroom's rear, the weight of his past folding around him like a shadow. His faded janitor's uniform was a far cry from the identity he had once known as a soldier. Years spent in the disciplined world of Army Special Forces had etched lines of fortitude into his character, leaving him with scars that ran deeper than the surface. It wasn't just the physical demands of his former life that lingered, it was the emotional baggage. Each day, he set to work with the same dedication he had for his country, pushing a mop across the floor and cleaning the cluttered chaos around him, but deep inside, he felt a void, a missed calling that gnawed at him in quiet moments. Sam's mornings began before sunrise too, not for himself but for those who needed care in the schools, churches, and halls. The repetition was comforting, it offered a sense of purpose. He kept to himself, a silent observer of the world that turned swiftly around him. His hands had once been trained for combat, to defend and protect, yet now they wielded only a mop and a bucket. With each pass of the floor, he fought a different kind of battle, one far less visible but no less significant. Those who saw him only recognized the uniform, unaware of the strength that lay dormant, waiting for a reason to emerge. Though he carried a sense of accountability for his actions, Sam resided in the shadows of his own mind, replaying memories of camaraderie, loss, and the haunting echoes of his training. He often wondered if he could ever truly move on. The friendships forged in conflict had lingered like ghosts, leaving him restless in the stillness of his new life. Days blended into each other, marked by a routine that required little from him but offered no chance for fulfillment. Yet, each act of kindness, like offering a smile to a child or cleaning an extra classroom, was his way of reclaiming his sense of worth. Clara's courtroom battle was a stark reminder of the fragments of her life that had been sullied, as well as the pieces that still gleamed with hope. To her, Sam was a soft glow in a darkened room, a quiet companion who had shared in her turmoil, though she remained unaware of his own internal struggles. Each kind gesture from him stitched a little piece of her fragmented heart back together. As she battled the accusations that threatened her dignity, his presence brought a sliver of solace amidst the storm, even if she could not fully comprehend the man behind the uniform. For Sam, watching Clara endure the harsh judgments felt like a test of his own resolve. He admired her unwavering spirit, the way she faced adversity without flinching, and it stirred something deep within him, a longing to protect, to fight for her in ways he couldn't articulate. In that moment, he felt the frayed edges of his existence begin to knit together. He was more than a janitor, he was a witness, a guardian, a man with a history that whispered of strengths he had yet to fully embrace. And as the courtroom drama unfolded, each accusation against Clara felt like a strike against him, igniting a spark within him that went beyond loyalty, a hunger to ensure that her light wouldn't extinguish under the weight of someone else's judgment. The sun filtered through the high windows of the school gymnasium, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Clara leaned against the bleachers, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, weighing the storm of emails and reports she had just emerged from. The annual fundraiser was just days away, and what should have been an exciting event was rapidly becoming a source of contention. Administrators pitted against one another, parents with differing visions for the evening. She felt caught in the crossfire, her heart sinking deeper as the clock ticked closer to chaos. Across the room, Sam pushed a cart, methodically collecting stray pieces of trash and empty soda cans. He noticed Clara's hunched posture and the frustration playing on her features. In his mind, her problems were trivial, yet, as he caught her gaze, a flicker of something deeper passed between them. Clara had become a fixture in his thoughts, a woman whose resilience both intrigued and bewildered him. Still, he masked his interest with indifference, focusing on his work instead. Clara approached him, her expression resolute as she said, "Sam, can we talk for a moment?" With a dismissive wave of his hand, he replied, "I'm on the clock, Clara. You know the drill." He focused on a particularly stubborn piece of paper stuck to the floor, avoiding her searching eyes. A voice in his head urged him to engage with her, to be the friend she didn't yet realize she needed. But the walls he had built around himself felt safer than any connection. "Please," she insisted, her tone unwavering. "It's about the fundraiser. I need your help with some logistics." The confidence in her voice demanded attention, cutting through the noise of their surroundings. She had a knack for commanding a room, even unintentionally. Sam paused for a brief moment, glancing at her with renewed consideration. "I'm not sure how I can help," he said, softening slightly, though still fighting the instinct to retreat. Clara was more than just a name on a clipboard to him. She was a woman with a past etched into the lines of her face, a complexity he was slowly becoming conscious of. "Just listen." The urgency in her voice grew as she elaborated on the constraints of their decisions, her astute mind piecing together a plan that could avert disaster. "If we reallocate the donation tables, we could maximize space and alleviate crowding at the entrance." Her eyes sparkled with a fierce intelligence, an unexpected depth that challenged his preconceived notions. "I know it's not typical, but I've worked on plenty of events before. I can make this work." For a moment, he felt the hardened exterior he had fashioned for himself crack. He looked at her, truly looked, and began to see beyond the title of single mother. She was a strategist, a problem solver. Something in him shifted, filling the void that had clung to him since leaving the military. She was resigning herself to an ordinary life, yet here she stood, wielding creativity like a weapon. Clara caught the shift in his demeanor, and she pressed further, her voice steady. "I know we may not see eye to eye always, but we both want what's best for the kids. You don't know my past, but I've managed bigger events than this. I can bring it all together." His resolve began to falter as her confidence enveloped him like a warm embrace, compelling him to let go of his misconceptions. Maybe she wasn't just a single mom with burdens weighing her down, maybe she was someone who had navigated storms of her own, someone he could admire rather than dismiss. "All right," he finally acquiesced, the battle inside him settling for the moment. "Let's see what you've got." As they huddled over a makeshift plan, the air between them shifted, thick with unspoken understanding. Sam's heart raced with the friction of new possibilities, and Clara's fierce determination ignited a spark of inspiration within him. Little did he know, Clara too was beginning to question everything she thought she understood about him, his absent demeanor, the darkness behind his eyes. Were they scars from battles fought, or remnants of a life she could only imagine? In that moment, beneath the harsh fluorescent lights of the gym, there were two people standing on the precipice of revelation, each grappling with a history that whispered promises of connection, resilience, and uncharted potential. And as the walls around them began to crumble ever so slightly, a delicate thread connected their lives, intertwining their fates in a way neither had anticipated. The rhythmic shuffle of feet echoed against the polished floor as Clara and Sam settled into a corner of the school gym, the sunlight streaming in, casting a golden hue over the chaos of scattered fundraising supplies. Clara laid out a series of papers stuffed with ideas and proposals, her heart racing from the adrenaline of collaboration, the excitement of shared purpose igniting an energy she hadn't felt in a long time. Sam stood beside her, arms crossed, studying her notes with a furrowed brow, a silent testament to the battle of his internal reservations. "Okay," Clara said, breaking the palpable silence, "if we coordinate the volunteer schedules with the donation drop-off times, we can minimize the congestion at the entrance. That way, we won't have a bottleneck just as people are arriving. It's all about logistics." Her voice brimmed with enthusiasm, unaware of the undercurrents of doubt that still swirled beneath Sam's surface. "Right," Sam replied, his voice steady, masking the turmoil he felt at being thrust into the fray. "But we also need to make sure we have enough people set up on the ground. I noticed the volunteers are split between the hallways and the gym. If we can get them focused on specific tasks, maybe we can create a steady flow." His gaze met hers briefly, a quick electric moment that sent a current of acknowledgement rippling between them. Clara nodded, impressed. This was new territory for her. She had always been the lone wolf handling her own battles. "That's a great point. We could even designate some of the parents as runners to keep things moving. With the right communication, we can make this event run seamlessly." The realization that Sam's suggestions held weight prompted her to lean in closer, actively inviting his insight into the conversation. As they scribbled notes back and forth, Clara watched Sam's expression shift from skepticism to thoughtful consideration. The rigid lines of his shoulders began to ease, mirroring the slowly thawing walls he had built around himself. The way he listened, genuinely synthesizing her suggestions with his, sparked something in her, a burgeoning respect, a kinship forged in the fires of challenge. "Have you ever planned events like this before?" Clara asked, curiosity threading through her voice. Sam hesitated, a flicker of something in his gaze that hinted at an unspoken past. "A few times. Not in a school setting, though," he finally admitted, careful to keep the details vague. In that moment, Clara sensed a hidden depth to Sam, the kind of history that didn't fit within the confines of a janitor's uniform. "Maybe you could help with the logistics behind the scenes," Clara suggested, the hint of challenge glimmering in her tone. She glanced at him with an impish smile. "I mean, how many times have you navigated chaos on the field?" It was playful, yet she knew there was truth lurking beneath her jest. The prospect of unearthing more of his story excited and terrified her in equal measure. Sam chuckled softly, the sound strange yet comforting in the growing tenderness of their exchange. "Let's just say I've navigated other types of chaos. But this feels different." The warmth of his admission began to chip away at the uncertainty between them, a softening of barriers that had once felt insurmountable. In this moment, as they ventured further into the planning, Clara understood that she didn't just need his help, she needed his partnership. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting the room in a warm glow, Clara felt the tension of the day slip away. "You know, there's a certain beauty in chaos," she said, her voice dipping into a more personal space. "It's messy, but it challenges you to improvise. Just like we're doing now." Their eyes locked, and in that silence, they exchanged an unspoken promise, a commitment to trust the process together, however daunting it would be. With each passing moment, they began to see each other more clearly, shedding the layers they had carried for far too long. Each tentative step into the unknown existed on the precipice of vulnerability, yet as they navigated the challenges of the fundraiser, they uncovered new levels of understanding about themselves and each other. And in that shared determination, amidst the lingering shadows of their pasts, the seeds of change were quietly taking root, ready to intertwine their lives in ways neither dared to dream. As Clara sat on the bleachers, a day's worth of tension easing from her shoulders, the words she had held captive for so long began to trickle out like a fragile stream. She turned to Sam, the warmth of the late afternoon sun casting a comforting glow on the two of them. "You know," she started softly, her voice steady, "life has a way of reshaping you when you least expect it." The confession lingered in the air, drawing Sam's gaze toward her, an invitation for the truths she often kept tucked away. "The toughest time in my life came when Ethan was born," she continued, leaning forward, her fingers tracing the wood grain of the bleacher. "My husband didn't take it well. The sleepless nights, the endless cycle of diapers and bottles. He wanted freedom, not fatherhood. One moment, we were a family, and the next, I was holding our son alone." Her voice cracked slightly, but she pressed on, buoyed by the strength she found in sharing her vulnerability. "I had to pick up the pieces and learn how to be a single mom overnight. There was a time when she had dreams, bright, ambitious visions of becoming a successful graphic designer. She had attended art school, her portfolio bursting with creativity and talent." Clara smiled at the memory of long nights spent sketching designs, pouring herself into her work. But the moment Ethan's tiny hand curled around her finger, her dreams faded like smoke in the wind. It was a painful choice to abandon aspirations, but every moment spent nurturing his laughter was a moment she cherished. "I thought I could balance it all, but life had different plans. My creativity became a luxury I no longer had time for," she confessed, regret lacing her words. Sam listened intently, feeling a weight in his chest as Clara unfolded fragments of her life. He recognized the resilience woven into her narrative, yet he wondered what it had cost her. The chaos of motherhood sounded like a battlefield, and she was a soldier navigating the terrain with a fierce resolve. "That's incredibly brave of you," he murmured, admiration creeping into his tone. "To put everything aside for your son like that. It takes a strength that not everyone has." "If I could go back," she said, a wistful look in her eyes, "I'd tell my younger self that it's okay to want both. It's okay to chase dreams while being a mother. But the world didn't make it easy for me." Clara paused, her expression shifting as she reflected on the disapproving glances of other parents, the whispers that followed her through the aisles of the grocery store. "I felt judged every time I took him to the playground, as if they could see the cracks in my armor, like I was a failure in their eyes." Sam felt the shadows of his own past brush against him, whispering reminders of what he had left behind. He had once been a man of purpose, chasing grandeur with the thrill of being part of something greater than himself. But here he was, mopping floors and picking up trash, adhering to a routine that felt devoid of meaning. As he listened to Clara's story, he recognized the unbridgeable gap between their worlds. The sacrifices she made for love mirrored the sacrifices he had made for duty. He thought of his own journey, the camaraderie forged in the heat of battle and the loss that had followed him back home. "I thought I was doing the right thing, serving my country," he murmured, his voice low. "But when I returned, I found myself lost. I thought I could just pick up where I left off, but the silence was deafening. Chaos is easy when you're in the field. But peace? That's a battle of its own." In Clara's eyes, he saw a flicker of understanding, the shared recognition of strength layered over hidden pain. They were both warriors adapting to life's unpredictable cadence, though they fought from very different fronts. Her struggles had been tied to love and loss, while his had been shackled to duty and the haunting memories of men he'd lost in combat. Together, they stood on opposite ends of a battlefield they had never chosen, yet both emerged with scars that spoke of resilience. "I think we're both trying to redefine our lives," Clara said finally, a warmth flooding her voice. "You're cleaning a school, but you're so much more than that. And I'm just a single mom planning a fundraiser, yet I have dreams that haven't fully vanished." Sam felt the truth in her words, an unspoken invitation to explore what lay beyond their circumstances. She inspired him to see himself differently, not just a man cloaked in shadows, but a protector, a partner in a world that had offered both of them a second chance. As they sat in that gym, sunlit and bursting with possibilities, a tender thread wove between them, two souls finding solace in shared stories, only beginning to understand the depths of each other's lives. Sam continued to contemplate his past, understanding that it didn't have to define him. And Clara, in turn, began to see the flickering light of her own forgotten dreams. Both standing at the precipice of change, each was determined to embrace the complexity of what lay ahead, hand in hand, ready to face the chaos of their intertwined fates. The fundraiser loomed just days away, and the excitement Clara had felt in recent moments was beginning to morph into a palpable tension. The chaos she had battled against had only intensified, as unexpected complications arose, sponsors reneging on donations and volunteers backing out at the last minute. Each hurdle felt as if it were designed to echo her past, dragging her down into an abyss of doubt she thought she had left behind. But Clara had made a promise to herself: she would not yield to despair again. Seated at the small kitchen table, Clara scrolled through emails on her laptop, her brow furrowing with each opened message. It felt like the universe was testing her resolve. Outside, the sun was shining, people were smiling, but inside, a storm brewed. Just as she was about to close the screen, a notification popped up: another sponsor pulling out. Clara inhaled sharply, her heart racing as her mind began to spiral. It was easy to slip back into the self-doubt she had fought so hard against, to let the swirling chaos convince her of impending failure. But then she thought of Ethan, his shining eyes filled with belief and innocence, and she felt her breath steady. In a moment of clarity, Clara picked up the phone, dialing Sam's number with a surge of determination. When he answered, she spoke with urgency. "Sam, can you meet me at the school? We need to talk about the fundraiser. It's falling apart." She could hear the concern in his voice, and she felt a flicker of gratitude. They had navigated their struggles together, perhaps they could weather this storm as well. Within the hour, Sam arrived, his presence grounding her as it always did. He stepped through the door, donning a clean janitor's uniform, a badge of pride for the work he did. The familiar warmth in his eyes gave Clara the strength to lay out everything that had been brewing in her mind. This time, it felt different. As they sat together, Clara refused to let the anxiety overwhelm her. Instead, she took a deep breath and began to plot out new ideas, encouraged by the mere fact that Sam was there, sharing in the burden. Sam listened attentively, thoughts of his own past swirling in his mind. He had learned that obstacles could reshape paths, much like the rigorous training seasons in the army had shaped him: adaptable, resilient. "What if we turn this around?" he suggested, his voice steady, revealing the latent resourcefulness he had built in both his military and civilian life. "Let's pivot the theme to something more community-focused. We could organize a local talent show. Everyone has something to contribute, and it would boost attendance." Clara's eyes widened, and she felt a rush of warmth. A plan was forming, and they were in it together. The spark of teamwork ignited within Clara, and this newfound collaboration began to shift their dynamic. They dove into the logistics, unearthing creativity from unexpected places. Sam's military training kicked in as he offered strategic suggestions for crowd control, while Clara shared her creative vision for the event. It was the first time she felt truly seen, not just as a single mother but as a capable organizer and innovator. In those moments, Sam became more than a partner in logistics; he was a pillar, anchoring her when she began to doubt herself. Days flew by in a whirlwind of fresh energy, and the fundraiser transformed into something unexpectedly beautiful, much like the bond they were building. Clara felt liberated as she embraced the chaos, making choices that spoke to her strength and independence, refusing to let fear dictate her actions as it had in the past. Sam saw the changes blooming within her, an unwavering spirit entwined with the courage to pursue her dreams while embracing her role as a mother. She inspired him to shed the shadows of his past and step into the light of who he was becoming. As the night of the fundraiser approached, Clara stood before the room filled with laughter and applause, her heart swelling with pride. The talent show had drawn in an eclectic mix of performers, local artists, and families, turning the chaos she had feared into a celebration of community and resilience. Sam stood off to the side, watching Clara interact with the attendees, entranced by the way she owned the space, exuding both warmth and confidence. In that moment, he realized that he was no longer just an observer; he felt a part of something larger than himself, a family, a community, and perhaps something deeper with Clara. As the evening reached its crescendo, Clara stepped to the mic, her voice steady and strong. "Thank you all for coming tonight and for believing in us. This fundraiser is about so much more than just raising money; it's about coming together, lifting each other up through our challenges." Her gaze met Sam's, an unspoken bond between them that stretched far beyond their current circumstances. She continued, "I know what it feels like to struggle, but I also know that we are stronger when we fight together." A surge of applause filled the room, and in that moment, Clara embraced not only her past but also the possibilities of their collective future. As the night wound down, Clara found Sam, and they shared a quiet moment amidst the remnants of the event, a connection forged in the fires of struggle, bolstered by the triumphs they had shared. They had both transformed, shedding the weight of their hidden pasts, and stepping boldly into the unknown, hand in hand. And while the road ahead was uncertain, they knew they would navigate it together, each bolstered by the other's resilience, ready to face whatever challenges life might throw their way. As the last remnants of the fundraiser began to fade into the night, Clara stood in the dimly lit gymnasium, watching the last families gather their things, the night air filled with laughter and the remnants of music still echoing softly in her heart. The glow of the overhead lights cast a warm halo around her, illuminating the sense of accomplishment that wrapped warmly around her shoulders. Ethan, her son, lingered nearby, his small fingers wrapped around a bright red balloon that bobbed gently above him, a bittersweet souvenir of the evening's success. He glanced up at his mother, his eyes sparkling with innocence, and as their gazes met, something unspoken passed between them, a deep bond forged in shared struggles, whispers of resilience in the quiet moments they had fought through together. He took a small step forward, his face lighting up with pride, and Clara knelt to meet him at eye level. "Did you see me clap for the singers?" he asked, his voice bubbling with enthusiasm. Clara smiled, her heart swelling, and she nodded, her voice gentle yet firm. "You were the best audience member, Ethan. You made everyone feel special." In that moment, she felt the weight of her past begin to lift, each shared laugh and whisper of support from the community filling the empty spaces that had once felt so daunting. It was as if the act of kindness from the night had stitched together the frayed edges of her heart, reshaping her understanding of what family meant. Sam stood back, cleaning up the remnants of the event, the quiet man behind the scenes. As he watched Clara and Ethan share their moment, a subtle smile crept onto his face, a warmth blossoming in his chest. He caught Clara's eye, and for a heartbeat, time stood still. No words were exchanged, but their understanding was profound, a quiet acknowledgement of the paths they had walked and the new journey that lay ahead. Ethan, noticing the shared glance, took a deep breath, his small hand reaching out to hold Clara's with a gentle squeeze. "Can we do this again next time, Mom? With Sam?" The innocence of his suggestion hung in the air, a simple request that carried the weight of 1,000 hopes. Clara's heart fluttered as she looked down at her son, feeling the warmth of his hand in hers. "Of course, sweetheart. Together, we can do anything." As the last echoes of laughter faded into the night, Clara and Sam shared another glance, a silent promise enveloping them in the soft glow of the overhead lights. In that quiet space, they understood their lives were no longer defined by the past but by the choices they made together, each moment binding them with threads of hope. And as they stood there, the world around them seemed to shimmer with possibility, a new dawn breaking on the horizon of their intertwined futures.